Hi everyone, it's Megan. We're back in the library today, so welcome back to another video. We are going to talk today about the books that I hope to read before the end of the year. Now, will I get to all these? I don't know, but let's go through and talk about them. Oh, but before we do that, let's look at my shirt. I'm just gonna stand back for a second. Yeah, I just figured if you like Game of Thrones, you would appreciate that. Anyway, let's get started. So the first series that I hope to read, I'm gonna try to read all three of them if I can, is the Nevermore series. The first one is called The Trials of Morgan Crow, and I just got this from our local library the other day, and oh my gosh, it's amazing. It is the closest thing, kind of an atmosphere and just the feeling of it, that it's the most similar to Harry Potter that I've ever read. And Harry Potter is like the reason that I became an English teacher and then a librarian. I didn't even like reading before Harry Potter. So obviously this is very magical, very whimsical. Then honestly, I think the writing is even better than Harry Potter. I feel like it's I don't know, it's more humorous and just, I don't know, I love the style of it. But it's about this girl named Morgan Crow who is cursed. So when she was born on this day called Eventide, which is like the last day of an age in their world that they live in, because there's magical stuff in this world too. And she's cursed so that she causes bad luck for other people, but now she's also destined to die at the end of the age on the next Eventide, which is usually like every 12 years or so. So she's only gonna live like 12 years, and everyone knows this. She's prepared for it, her family knows, but her family's also not very caring. They're very kind of distant, and she just lives in this big kind of cold manor. And anyway, it starts off on the day that she is basically going to die, because it turns out the age is ending sooner than they think, and she's now only 11 years old, and she's like, oh no, it's coming for me now. So there is a society called the Wondrous Society, which is definitely kind of like Hogwarts, and there's this guy that runs it who is definitely kind of like Dumbledore, but like younger. But he's very funny. He just, I don't know, he reminds me of Dumbledore. And he comes to get her and save her and take her to this place where she can escape death that she's supposed to have, and I guess she's not gonna be cursed anymore. And anyway, apparently she's gonna face some trials while she's there, and I don't know any more about it, but I don't want to. But it says this is perfect for fans of Neil Gaiman, which I'm not a huge Neil Gaiman fan, but Harry Potter and the Mysterious Benedict Society series, which I also really liked. So anyway, I absolutely love it. I went ahead and bought all three books on Amazon, so fingers crossed it stays good, because I went ahead and bought them. So I'm going to try to read all three of these. They're very short, fast-paced. Well, no, it's not super short, but very fast-paced because it is a middle grade novel. So anyway, I hope to read these, and this might be the best book I've read all year. So the next book I'm definitely going to read before the end of the year is a book that I've already started, and that is The Ruin of Kings by Jen Lyons. I'm not very far into it, as you can see, but I've got to start. It's huge. It is also really tall pages with lots of words per page. It's very complex. There's multiple point of views, well, really two main point of views. There's, appendices, glossaries, all kinds of things in the back. So, I mean, it's not an easy book necessarily to get through. So I'm probably gonna have to start over because I've kind of already forgotten some of the magic. But like, other characters can even look like different people, change their appearance, pretend to be other people, something like that. So apparently it's gonna get even more complicated. There's dragons, like fallen gods. There's, very high fantasy. And it says, what if you weren't the hero? So apparently this kid's destiny is not to save the empire, but to destroy it. And so I just think that that's a really fascinating premise. And I hear a lot of good things about this book, although the score on Goodreads is not as high as I thought it was gonna be. It's like only 3.8 or something like that. But JD Ray Reads, who I watch her channel all the time, she really, really loved this series, and it's what convinced me to go ahead and buy a copy. I hardly ever just go out and buy a book, although I just did that with Nevermore too, but so fingers crossed that this book is as good as it sounds. The next book I hope to read before the end of the year, I've actually got a couple here that are sequels. I really do need to finish some series or continue with them. This one is Redempter by Jordan Afueko. This is the sequel to Raybearer, which was my favorite young adult fantasy novel, like, of all time, and I read it this year. I read it for school originally because it was a summer reading book that the students could choose from, and it was the one that I was supposed to lead a book discussion on. We wound up not doing that activity, but I did read the book and make notes because I thought I was leading a book discussion on it, and so I actually really, really enjoyed it. It was super fast-paced. The world building was so in-depth. I've already talked about it on my channel a lot before, so I'm not going to go through it all again. But this is the sequel, and the finale of the end of the first book set up like what is going to be, I think, a really cool premise for this second book. And there's only two in the series, so once I read this one, I'll be finished. I don't really remember everything that happened in the first book, but I think like the first chapter, because I read a few pages before, the first chapter, I believe, kind of gives you a recap of everything, so that's good. The interesting thing is that this author The first book was her first novel, and she had spent years planning it and writing it, and then all of a sudden she had to write this sequel during a pandemic in a very short amount of time because the first one was so popular. Her publishers wanted to get the second one out. So I'm intrigued to see if that means that this one will be as good as the first one or not, but I hear that it is, so we'll find out. Another sequel that I want to get to is Arm of the Sphinx by Josiah Bancroft. This is the sequel to what's the first one called? Oh my gosh, it's the Books of Babel series, Sinless Sins, there we go. This is a very strange fantasy novel that was originally self-published and then now has been picked up by a publisher. The fourth book just came out. It's the final book, so the series is finished now. I hear so much about it, so I honestly had super high hopes for the first book, but it didn't quite live up to my expectations, although I liked it enough to continue. So I just didn't expect the series to go where it went, but I've talked about this at length on the channel before, so I'm not going to go through it all again, but fingers crossed that this one isn't as weird as I think it's going to be, so we'll see. The next book I may or may not get to, but I'd started this like back over the summer, I believe it was, but The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. I actually got 146 pages in. So people talk about this book obviously nonstop on BookTube, the whole series, the First Law trilogy. And I love Game of Thrones, so you know, I'm kind of expecting to like this because I know it's got some more dark humor in it. I know it is like, what is it, grim dark fantasy or whatever, which I'm fine with. And I hear that there's not much plot because it's very character driven, which I'm fine with too, as long as I like the characters. And so far I do. I actually remember there being quite a bit of plot so far, so I don't know what people are talking about. I guess I expected absolutely no plot at all, but there is some, so at least that's good. But fingers crossed I have time to get to this, although it's probably the last on this list of books that I'll get to. So this may have to wait till next year and I may have to start over. I'm also currently in the middle of a couple other books. I recently DNF'd some books and started some new ones. So right now I'm reading an ebook called The Nature of Witches. Honestly, I forgot the author, but it'll be here on the screen. So The Nature of Witches is a young adult fantasy novel about it's set in the real world, but it's kind of this weird version of the future where there's like some climate issues going on, and these witches can help the climate issues. Each of them can kind of control different seasons, but our main character, it's called an Everwitch, who can control all 4 seasons, which is really, really rare. There's not been one in a long time, and there's only one right now. She's the only one. However, she doesn't want this. She hates it, actually, because it puts a lot of pressure on her, and she's used her powers in the past and she's accidentally killed people that she loves. So yeah, it's pretty intense. But anyway, she decides that she's going to wait till the next solstice, and then she's going to go outside during the solstice, and I guess that's going to strip her of her powers so that she has no powers at all and just be done with the whole thing. But I have a feeling that she's going to have to help save the day with some other issues that are going on. She's got this guy who's training her like a mentor. I'm sure he's gonna be a love interest as well. It's honestly a lot more slow moving than I expected because it's not a very long book. I think I'm about halfway through it and not much has happened yet. I feel like it's still been sitting up the premise for a long time, so I'm ready for there to be plot now, I guess. But anyway, we'll see. Hopefully I'll make it through this one. The final book I hope to read, at least, maybe some more, but the audio book that I'm listening to, which means I'll probably finish this one and maybe start another one. But anyway, it's The Death of Jane Lawrence. Everyone is talking about this book. It's a very new release, and I got a hold of the audio book. It's got very mixed reviews. It's sort of a gothic horror novel, historical fiction. It's very similar to Mexican Gothic, which I kind of liked. It was okay, it was fine. I liked the ending, like the last 100 pages or so. So hopefully this one is just as good, although I've heard it's not. And since I wasn't a huge fan of Mexican Gothic, we'll see. Hopefully this one doesn't drag on and get kind of boring, but anyway, we'll see how it goes. So those are some books I hope to read before the end of the year. I don't know that I'll get to all of them, and maybe I'll decide to just sneak a few more in there and switch out some of these. I'm definitely a mood reader, so you just never know. All right, so thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye.